Welcome into FFPC Insider Access for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. I am your host, Eric Balkman. Connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. That's EricBalkman. You may know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Extra Reps podcast, and of course, the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com. So excited to bring you 2 hours of nonstop Dynasty, best ball, really fantasy football talk in general. That's what we're going to be doing tonight, and I can't wait for it. Now, if you are looking for a place to put all this advice and all this conversation we're going to have tonight to good use, check out the Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com. We have Dynasty Orphans. We have Empire Dynasty Orphans for as little as $1 right now with the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Play fantasy football year-round for as little as $1 right now. myffpc.com is where to go for that. If you want to get your best ball on, you can do that 2 different ways with the FFPC at the moment. We have the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, which features a $125 entry and a $40,000 grand prize. We also have the FFPC Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament featuring a $35 entry fee and a $10,000 grand prize. Sign up now, register now, draft now. Why? Because once the NFL draft starts, that tournament or both those tournaments stop. They will go all the way to the start of the NFL draft, and then they will close. So get in while the getting's good now. myffpc.com. Pair of gorillas to talk to you about as well. The Big Gorilla is back for year 2. $1 million grand prize, $350 entry fee. The 7 Bananas promo is live. If you keep getting that 7 pick randomly in a row, we're going to keep throwing free teams at you, escalating, starting at $125 for a best ball tournament entry, then the main event, then the high society, and then a jungle safari for 4. It's going to be a lot of fun if anybody's able to get that 7 pick 5 times in a row. And then the FFPC Baby Grill is something new we're doing this year. Check it out. Just $125 to enter. So if you always want to play high stakes fantasy football, this is the perfect entry point for you. Just $125, and you can win $100,000 grand prize. All those leagues available at myffpc.com. That is myffpc.com. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to bring in my guest co-host tonight for the first 2 hours. No, we're only doing a 2-hour show, not first 2 hours. For the full 2 hours, he's going to hop aboard. You've seen his work over at Fantasy Pros as well as all his Dynasty content over at dynastyleaguefootball.com. Connect with him on the X at DLF_Moore. It is the incomparable Michael Moore. Michael, good evening. Thanks so much for hopping aboard tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I was going to say, I'm only good for 2 hours, so if you got to go past that, I don't know that I'm your guy. So
No, I'm not my guy. I couldn't do more than 2 hours.
Right.
It would not work out. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Before we get into the actual content, which I'll tell everybody what's coming up here on the show tonight, give the viewers, the listeners, a little bit of background of what you do for DLF and the kind of content you've produced in the past for Fantasy Pros as well.
Yeah, so for Dynasty League Football, I do their trending observation series. And so what that essentially means is I pay attention to Twitter, I pay attention to other social media, and kind of see what the big stories or what the big posts are in that week. And then so I write about it, write about how that might affect your Dynasty team one way or the other. And and we use the tools at DLF, whether it's our trade analyzer, whether it's our Dynasty rankings, to kind of give you advice and give you some context on what's going on. And then Fantasy Pros, that's kind of a jack of all trades kind of thing. So where I'm kind of the utility guy, so wherever they need me.
I may have lost your audio, or I may have just lost your audio there. It just at the end, Michael. But when you say jack of all trades with Fantasy Pros, are you just solely focused on football there, or are you doing other sports as well? No, maybe no. Hold on, Michael, you're muted. Let me see if I can fix that. I am getting a message that your mic is not connected right now. I don't know if you can see that, Michael. I'm gonna send you a message here. To see if you can see if we can fix that. Okay, I'm going to pop you out, pop you back in. So that's what Michael is doing for Dynasty League Football, as well as Fantasy Pros. And coming up on the show tonight, because Michael is an expert in Dynasty, we're going to get into a conversation with Michael about not only rookies and everybody that has been crushing it at the combine, as well as like veterans. What are you doing with certain veterans right now? What are the moves to make? What do you need to be doing right now to make sure you're maximizing your roster value? So we'll get into some veterans, Travis Etienne, Terry McLaurin, George Kittle, and then a lot of quarterback stuff. Anthony Richardson, Jackson Dart, Lamar Jackson, stuff like that. So that's what's coming up on the show tonight as well. Michael, can you hear me now? Do we got you back? Are we good now?
Almost.
Can you hear me still?
Almost.
Okay, I got you now. Now you're coming through good.
Okay, is that all right?
Yes, you're coming through good. Excellent. I'm glad we beat technology at
All
least
right.
now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, let's lead things off. And it was the big news of the day, man. We got a huge trade going down in the NFL today. The Chicago Bears have pared down their pass catchers a little bit as they send DJ Moore to the Buffalo Bills in exchange I take that back. It was a DJ Moore and a 5th rounder that goes from Chicago to Buffalo, and then the Bears get a 2nd round pick back in this. So let's unpack this right away from the DJ Moore side. Obviously, Josh Allen is getting his man. I said in an FFPC Dynasty email that I sent out today to a lot of the Dynasty players, I said worst case scenario, he's battling Khalil Shakir to be the number 1 receiver on the team. Best case scenario, maybe this guy has multiple top 10 fantasy wide receiver seasons in him, right? Those are sort of the opposite ends of the spectrum. It'd probably fall in somewhere in the middle. But when you talk about either having DJ Moore on your roster right now in Dynasty, Michael, what are you doing with him? And maybe more importantly, if he's not on your roster, what are you doing to try to acquire him? How hard are you going after Moore? 29 years old, and now will be moving on to his 3rd NFL team in the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, so I would say I think the Bills probably paid more than you should in Dynasty for DJ Moore. I don't know that a lot of Dynasty teams would give up a 2nd right now for that, but and I think we have to kind of just be real about what DJ Moore is. I mean, yeah, he had 1 or 2 good seasons, and I think there was obviously a lot of potential there as a former 1st round pick. But last year with the Bears, I mean, he was not very high in the pecking order there. And so I don't know if they saw something or they just liked Roma Dunze and Colton Loveland better or Luther Burden or whatever. But DJ Moore was barely a top 30 fantasy receiver. So I think if you just accept personally DJ Moore for what he is, I think it's fine. And it certainly is an upgrade because he's not going to have nearly the competition in Buffalo that he had in Chicago. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Khalil Shakir fan. I had him on several teams, but it's not like he's going to be a top 10 guy either, So I think, as long as you, I think, sort of temper your expectations with DJ Moore, and if you're happy with kind of what he was now, or even an improvement upon that, I think you should be very happy. As far as what I would give up, I get a 2nd seems a little high for Dynasty rookie picks, but certainly if it's a 3rd and a veteran or another veteran that maybe 2 Dynasty teams just want to swap and get rid of, I think that would be fine. But yeah, no, I continually am amazed at the cost of what some of these players what it takes to acquire them in the real NFL as opposed to Dynasty leagues.
Right. And I wonder if there's what's the line from Super Troopers? Desperation is a stinky cologne, right?
Right.
And I think Brandon Beane probably had some desperation, right? Because he had Diggs for a little bit, and then he moved on to Houston. You draft Keon Coleman early in this. Was that a late 1st or early 2nd round pick? That was a late.
I think 1st. It was the top of the 2nd. Yeah,
top of the 2nd. Okay, all right. And through 2 years, that hasn't necessarily worked out. Meanwhile, Josh Allen keeps getting a year older every single season, right? So there was pressure on him to make sure that he was able to bring somebody in. Steve G is chiming in on YouTube right now on our chat saying worst case scenario, they could sign Mike Evans too. Although
Sure.
I think that's less likely now. I certainly see a world where that could still happen, where you really how often have we seen it, Michael, where it seems like there's a weakness on an NFL team and there's just overkill where they're like, this is never going to be. The Bears did it with their interior offensive line last year, right? Where they just had so many problems there. They went out and made a trade and signed 2 other guys, and then all of a sudden it became a strength. And maybe we see that with Buffalo this year too. Certainly they've been so run heavy the last couple of years. And I know Joe Brady's taken over as head coach. Maybe that continues. But if you add Mike Evans to this equation as well and can trot out Kincaid, Shakir, DJ Moore, and Mike Evans, that's pretty intimidating if you're an opposing defense trying to cover all that, including James Cook. So it remains to be seen the next move that Buffalo makes there. But certainly DJ Moore in a much better spot in Buffalo than he was in Chicago. Let's flip it and talk about Chicago here. This is good news for Luther Burden. It's good news for Roma Dunze. It's good news for Colston Loveland. Quite frankly, Michael, everybody just moved up a little bit as far as expected production goes in Chicago. Who do you think out of those 3 is the biggest beneficiary of Moore moving on? Is it Odunze? Is it Burden? Or is it Loveland?
Well, again, I'll sort of preface it with, DJ Moore was so low on kind of the pecking order already that, yes, I agree. All of them are going to see a boost as far as targets go, attention, etc. But again, I think we have to just keep in mind it's not going to be, 50% more production. I mean, yes, it's going to be a little boost, but again, just to kind of temper expectations. But I think as far as the person or the player that's going to benefit the most, for me, it's got to be Odunze. I think Luther Burden, I think Ben Johnson has a very specific sort of vision in mind for him, and I think he's going to execute that, which I think is going to be very good for him. Colston Loveland, I mean, obviously has the sort of tight end position on lockdown, so that's sort of a role in itself. So I think for me, Odunze is going to be the biggest winner here because he's not going to have to sort of fight for those kinds of similar targets that he would have with DJ Moore. And look, let's not forget the other, I mean, besides the receivers and the pass catchers winning in Chicago, they got a 2nd round pick out of it. So, I mean, as a team, I mean, this was a great deal for everybody involved on the Chicago side.
Is there a player, I mean, if we throw all the peppers in the gumbo here, let's throw in the 3 Bears, let's throw in DJ Moore. Is there any actionable dynasty advice that you would give that you would be doing in either to acquire any of those 4 players or trade away, but perhaps maybe trade high on any of those players right now? What's the best advice you can give FFPC dynasty players on the proper way to handle the fallout from this trade?
Yeah. I think Luther Burden was already going to be, his value was going to skyrocket. I think this offseason, I think he was going to be a very popular player. I don't think this changes that, quite honestly, or at least it shouldn't. I mean, I think he was going to be very valuable regardless if DJ Moore stayed on the team or not. I think, as I just said with Roma Dunze, I think his position improves a little bit. I still probably wouldn't value him, a lot more than Luther Burden, but I think it definitely gained some value after this trade. And then Colston Loveland, I think, again, regardless of this trade or not, I think he was primed to be an elite tight end option when it comes to fantasy. So, I again, if anything, I think this just provides more clarity, but I think the value for all these guys was going to be the same regardless, because I don't think DJ Moore was going to be cutting into these guys next year anyway. Yeah,
he had basically, I should bring up the stats because the drop-off was insane, Michael, from 2024 to 2025. He went from 98, 966. Actually, his touchdown stayed the same. He had 6 touchdowns this past year and 6 touchdowns 2 years ago. But he had, in 2024, 98 catches for 966 yards. He basically got half that this past year, 50 catches. Still got almost 700 yards receiving. But you think about, too, like his the yards per catch went down when he was with so let's do this. Yards per catch through the course of DJ Moore's career: 13.5, 18.1, 12.4, 14.1, 14.2, 2024, 9.9, and then it was back up to 13.6. So even though he had nearly 100 catches in 2024, they're getting less than 10 yards per catch, or he was getting less than 10 yards per catch. So there's something to be said there too. I don't think he's washed. I think that this is a good situation for Moore. But I'm with you. Like like Steve Harvey would say, slow your roll, player. We just got to understand, like, this is not DJ Moore to the moon. This is DJ Moore, maybe to 30,000 feet above our heads, but definitely not to the moon.
Yeah, and look, I fully believe he could be the top receiver in Buffalo. I absolutely believe that. I think he's the best receiver there for sure. Now, whether that translates statistically and fantasy-wise, that remains to be seen. But I think he's got a good shot at it. But again, with Buffalo, as we've all seen, that offense runs through Josh Allen, not just his arm, but his legs and the run game. And look, James Cook isn't going anywhere. So, I think if DJ Moore were a top 20 receiver, I think I would be thrilled with that personally.
I think people should be very, very happy with that if he ends up in the top 20 this year. Steve Regalos also chiming in too. I was chopping it up today with some really sharp players. Odunze definitely in play. He did play hurt second part of the year, and I think sometimes we forget about that, myself included. I remember he did miss a couple of games, 2 or 3 games with that foot injury, and then he played through, tried to gut it out, obviously, for the latter part of the season and then the postseason. So yeah, he's going to come back healthy this year as well. It's really, I mean, it's really a testament to how high Caleb Williams is going to go in drafts now that he has these 3 ascending targets to be able to throw to on that offense.
Well,
now,
and for me, I'm a big believer in if there's coaching changes and kind of looking at that. So you had Ben Johnson in his first year last year. I mean, look, Odunze, Luther Burden, Colson Loveland, those are Ben Johnson's guys. That's it. DJ Moore was not. I mean, there's a reason why he fell down the priority list and that they shipped him off. And so these are the guys that Ben Johnson's going to roll with. And I think if you have them, certainly in dynasty leagues, you should be very happy no matter which one you got.
Tom Smith also chiming in on our YouTube chat tonight, Michael. And I'll jump ahead on our rundown to talk about the former Patriots receiver, Stephon Diggs. Tom says, with Diggs getting released, does New England go after A.J. Brown or Mike Evans now? The details on Stephon Diggs, it's not going to be official, until the start of the new league year, which happens next week. But Diggs has already been posted on social media saying his goodbyes to Patriots fans. 2.1 yards per route run this past year, but he was not they had so many different pass catchers on that team. Douglas and Booty and Hunter Henry, obviously, as well. Matt Collins was making plays throughout the season. Again, a guy that I don't think is washed, but I said this last night on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, his best football is indeed behind him. Before we talk Diggs, what do you think New England's going to do here? Certainly, I think that DJ Moore would have been in play for New England to acquire him, but now that's not going to happen. He's going to be in Buffalo. Tom's asking about Mike Evans. He's asking about A.J. Brown. I think those are the 2 hottest names. Alec Pierce would be a possibility, too, that they could sign in free agency. Michael, do you have any inkling of what you think the Patriots would do? Or perhaps what would be best for fantasy? Who's the best option there to be catching passes from Drake May in 2026?
Well, look, the A.J. Brown connection is obvious, right? I mean, you got Mike Vrabel there, who was his coach in Tennessee. It seems to be a story every offseason with A.J. Brown and the Eagles that, there's some kind of impasse or some kind of, consternation going on. And so if there were ever a time for A.J. Brown to be traded, I think it would be now. And I think New England would be a logical choice. They have to get a pass catcher. They just have to. They've got Drake May on a rookie contract. They've got the cap space. And they just don't have that sort of guy. I mean, and look, Diggs was very serviceable, obviously. I mean, I think he surprised some people with kind of a bounce back year, especially after kind of the disappointing stint in Houston he had. So, but I think that people are hoping, certainly Patriots fans and Drake May dynasty managers, that they get something better than Diggs as far as a pass catcher goes. Because if this is it, and I don't think it is, that's a downgrade. And so I think A.J. Brown is an obvious choice. I think Mike Evans, I mean, I think he would be wise to go there. I mean, clearly you've got a quarterback and a team that is primed to be very successful, went to the Super Bowl last year. So I don't know if there's a particular receiver or any one receiver, but they should be in on all of them until they get one that could do the job, quite honestly, whether it's Brown, whether it's Evans, whether it's trade, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft. I mean, get somebody or get 2 guys. I mean, just, flood the zone with receivers and pass catchers so that you give Drake May a better supporting cast than he had last year.
Yeah, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston. Those would be guys that New England could get at the end of the first round of the draft. And they might not even be available at that point, but those would be two guys I'd be looking at. What's interesting to me is they've decided to move on from Diggs, Michael, at this point right now.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who was their leading receiver last year, had 1,000 yards. It might be weird to think he did, but he did.
Yeah.
But big name, right? And then you look at like, okay, well, who could they get to replace him? Obviously, you want to. You were just talking about this. You want to upgrade from Diggs if you're going to release him. You don't want to sign somebody that's a downgrade. You want to get somebody. You were just in the Super Bowl last year. You need somebody to put you over the top. And as I look at some of these free agent receivers that are going to be out there, Juwan Jennings, Romeo Dobbs, Wan'Dale Robinson, Christian Kirk, Rashid Shaheed, Deebo Samuel. I mean, all these players to me are not upgrades on Diggs. Yeah. And Tom brings up Brown and Mike Evans, and you could make you could convince me fairly easily those are the only two upgrades at receiver that they could get in free agency. And I also don't necessarily think, even if they were to go with a rookie receiver in the first round, that he's going to be a better option to help you get and win a Super Bowl in 2026. If Diggs couldn't get it done, I don't know why you trust these guys to do it right away. Now, maybe down the road they'd be better, but right now I don't know. And to me, this reeks of like, okay, they either have plans to get Evans or they have plans to trade for AJ Brown, because I cannot believe New England would go into this season without Diggs and with his replacement not being as talented as that player. Unless Diggs, the other thing we haven't talked about, he's got legal stuff off the field. Maybe that's more serious than what we know. Maybe the Patriots know that. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but there's a non-zero chance that factored into it too.
Yeah, and look, I mean, putting it nicely, I mean, Diggs has always been a distraction, right? Like that's sort of just, you got to take it with having him on your team. Like you just have to be prepared for off the field stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, and look, it could be a matter of, yes, they trade for AJ Brown while also signing one of those kind of mid-tier receivers as kind of backup, right? I mean, I think Patriots fans would love that. I think Drake May dynasty managers would love that. I think the hope is they don't just bank on one player to sort of solve that problem, right? Like, hey, let's bring in a couple guys. Let's have some competition and let the best man win, not just putting all of our chips on an AJ Brown trade, which is going to cost you a little bit, or Mike Evans signing or what have you, So again, I'm with you. I think the timing was odd, and it's clear that even as productive as Diggs was, they were very ready to move on, and they were very ready for to have someone else in there in the receiver room.
Right. And listen, if they miss the playoffs this year and this happens, okay, I get it. But when you were this close to winning a Super Bowl title, it does raise an eyebrow, maybe even raises two eyebrows. Darnell Mooney, let's move on and talk about him here. He was released by the Falcons today. Ian Rappaport reported this on X earlier this morning. Atlanta's going to save a little over $7 million in cap space by letting him go. Mooney signed a 3-year, $39 million contract prior to last season, and he looked awesome, right? 64 catches, 992 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Last year, had a bunch of injuries he was dealing with, and it plummeted. Half as many catches with 32. Less than half the yardage with 443. He only gets into the end zone one time as well. Now, I do know that he had some drops and his play wasn't all that solid throughout, from week 1 all the way to week 17 when he was out there. But I got to believe that injuries played a factor into this. And I'm trying to look at this glass half full right now, because I think Mooney is a guy that we've seen be a fantasy difference maker when he was with Chicago. And certainly in that first year in Atlanta, he definitely looked like he was on the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 borderline at a minimum, given his big play potential and the fact that he got into the end zone nearly a half dozen times that season. I think this is interesting because somebody is going to fall into signing a player, a proven player, coming off a down year. And I think Mooney could actually make some noise. Think about Dynasty. I just put the feelers out on, especially if you need a receiver, or even if you're looking to add a 5th receiver or a 6th receiver. I think Mooney's going to pay off more than that. Obviously, it depends upon the landing spot for Mooney, but I'm attributing the bad year mostly to injuries, and that sort of affected his entire level of play. That's what I'm banking on, and that's why I think he's kind of a dynasty buy right now. It could blow up in my face, Michael, if he signs with a team and he's buried on the depth chart. I don't think that happens, though.
No, I'm with you. I mean, especially that wide receiver 5-6 category would be ideal. I mean, honestly, I think it was probably for the best he didn't stay in Atlanta. I mean, Kevin Stefanski last year, as we saw, doesn't like receivers. So, hey, great. Like, go somewhere else.
Mhm.
I think a lot of teams, he'd probably have a better shot at being more productive. So, but yeah, and again, it's all about, as we already talked about, expectations, meaning, don't trade for him or think, oh, he's going to get back to sort of that wide receiver 2 almost category or territory. But look, if you're needing some depth, and if you've got a dynasty roster that, has a lot of spots, a lot of roster spots there, yeah, he's great. And he's a veteran. He's still in his prime. And there's no shortage of teams that are looking to load up on receiver. I mean, there's no teams that are just going all in on the run, I think. So they're going to want to load up on receivers and see what they get. And I think Mooney's a good guy to certainly take a chance on. It's a low risk, but potentially high reward guy.
Yeah, you could say the same whether we're talking dynasty fantasy football or whether we're talking NFL. Because yep. I think both parties, whoever gets Mooney on their roster, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised at what they get in 2026.
Yeah.
Jonnu Smith, no longer a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was released. This would have been yesterday, actually. Adam Schefter reporting this on X. $7 million in cap space is going to be the savings for the Steelers. If you are wondering, can he follow Arthur Smith again, who he had in Miami and then who he had in Pittsburgh? He cannot, unless there's some sort of weird collegiate eligibility that I'm not aware of with Jonnu Smith, because Arthur Smith is the new offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Last year, Jonnu Smith was utilized rushing the ball, catching the ball, blocking. He did it all last year. 38 catches, just over 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Underwhelming for fantasy. He is only 30 years old. I say only because I think a player like him could probably age pretty well, and he's got some good fantasy seasons. You think about the FFPC having tight end premium scoring. I don't know if I want to go crazy on Jonnu Smith, and maybe this is more of a commentary on what Pittsburgh wants to do now, that they're not going to be utilizing all these tight end heavy sets, that maybe Pat Freiermuth develops into more of like your standard 1A tight end on that team with Darnell Washington mixing in, and you don't have to worry about Jonnu Smith gumming up the works now. We'll talk about Smith here first. What's your sort of viewpoint and assertion on the level of play that we're going to get from Smith this year? And again, I know it depends upon where he goes, but from what you saw with him last year, does he continue that trajectory, or do you think he's on the downslope now?
I think he's on the downslope personally. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had him 2 years ago when he broke out with Miami, and believe me, it was great. It was good.
Awesome.
It was good time. Awesome. And but even before last season started, when he ended up in Pittsburgh, it was still kind of odd because again, they already had Freiermuth. They brought Jonnu Smith along. They drafted a tight end and pretty high in the draft. So even then, it was kind of confusing. And so, look, this move makes sense that they're moving on from him because they kind of had a surplus of guys at the position. Certainly, they didn't want to pay their third tight end $7 million. So I get it. So. I hate to say it. I think it is one of those that it's entirely contingent on where he lands. I don't think his skill set is to the point where he could land anywhere and be successful. I think we're kind of past that phase of his career. But if he were to end up on a team where there is just no clear-cut option at tight end, I think I would be back in the Jonnu Smith business. But if he ends up as sort of that veteran backup, or maybe to a team that drafted a tight end pretty high. Because, look, you've got a couple of very good tight end prospects. So it's possible a team that drafts one of those guys signs Jonnu Smith to kind of mentor. I'd probably be out on that personally. I just think, look, the 1 year seems to be more the outlier than the standard there. So.
I went on fantasymojo.com at FantasyMojo on X is where to follow Darren Armani, who runs fantasymojo.com. Anytime I cite ADP or anything like that with the FFPC, it's due to that website. If you are playing in the FFPC, highly recommend you get a subscription there. I just looked up the never too early FFPC best ball tournament ADP right now for Jonnu Smith. Tight end 47 in the 20th round, Michael. I mean, even in tight end premium, people are not, they don't see anything there. Now, I think there is something there that he's been released, because there's a possibility that he does, to your point, maybe that 1 year starting tight end while they groom Eli Stowers or Max Clare or Kenyon Sadiq or something like that. I think there's definitely a chance of that happening. And with a 20th round price tag, yeah, I think if I was playing in that tournament, I'd probably take a couple of shots on Jonnu Smith. As far as the Steelers go, how much more do you like Pat Freiermuth? Does this move the needle for you at all? Not only in best ball, but in dynasty?
It probably does, only because now we've removed that kind of uncertainty, right? I mean, that was the issue last year, was nobody knew, okay, who's going to be leading the team or the tight end room in targets. But with that removed now, and look, it's a whole new era in Pittsburgh with McCarthy, but McCarthy did utilize tight ends at his previous stops. And so I think there's a good chance Freiermuth certainly bounces back to what he was before the Jonnu Smith sort of era. Not to say he's going to be an elite option or that he's going to be a top 5 option, but could he be a top 10, top 15 tight end for fantasy? I think he definitely could.
I want you to bear with me on this next analogy, okay? I don't know if it's an appropriate one, but let's see if we can follow along. Valentine's Day, box of chocolates, very popular gift, right? And inside those chocolates, Michael, sometimes there's really good stuff. Sometimes it's chocolate, sometimes it's caramel. Sometimes it's really disgusting stuff, flavors that don't go well together, coconut mint or something like that. Right. And I know Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, he was talking about stand-up with this. And he said, he's like, oh, I hated those things. You bite into one and be like, oh, I got the one with toothpaste in it. And some of them did taste like toothpaste, those chocolates. Right. Here's the fantasy football analogy. We got news today that Sean Tucker is not going to be tendered a contract with Tampa, okay? And we already knew Rachaad White is a free agent. So on the surface, right, this glorious chocolate ADP or this glorious chocolate dynasty value for Bucky Irving looks super appetizing, right? This is going to be great for 2025, 2026, and maybe even beyond, right? But if we bite into that, I think we could get that disgusting, weird, toothpastey coconut mint flavor, because this, to me, if you read between the lines, I think Tampa has plans to take advantage, not necessarily of a weakened rookie running back class, but taking advantage of a super deep running back free agent class, right? With Walker and ETN and all these other guys that are going to be out there looking for teams, Rico Dowdle. So right now, I think would be the time to maybe float Bucky Irving, put him on the block in your dynasty league just to see if somebody overpays, because they're like, oh my God, there's nobody else in this backfield. And I think it's fine to look at it that way. But I said the same thing about the Denver running back, RJ Harvey. Mm-hmm. I said the same thing last year that when they drafted Harvey, I said they were always going to sign somebody else in that backfield. It ended up being J.K. Dobbins. And I think in Tampa right now, it looks very appetizing on the surface, right? But underneath, I think when free agency starts next week, and Tampa signs like Dowdle or ET, somebody like that, all of a sudden Bucky Irving, it's like the value is I don't want to say gone, but it takes a huge hit. That's the way I'm viewing this right now. Tampa's going to get somebody, and the fact that White is gone and now Tucker's going to be gone, it could be a significant somebody in that backfield in free agency.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I'm always just, my sort of personal playing style is, I never want to go after the guys that are going to cost a lot early in the offseason, right? Because there's just too many variables between now and when the season starts to invest a lot, right? So to your point, yeah, Rachaad White looks pretty good right now because, hey, he's the only guy there. And Bucky Irving. I'm sorry, I got them mixed up. Yeah, Bucky Irving looks pretty good because he's the only guy there, and it's a good offense around him. But at the same time, to your point, there's just too much time left for Tampa to do anything to fill in the depth chart, like you said, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, whatever. So, yeah, it's always dicey if you're going to be parting with some valuable, whether it's fab money or whether it's rookie picks, what have you, this time of year. And so I'm of the opinion I would much rather go after sort of the bargain bin guys this time of year that don't cost a lot. That, hey, it may not cost you a lot as far as rookie picks go, but they might hit later down the road. So I completely agree. I think it's way too early to commit a lot of resources to not just Bucky Irving, but to any player, quite honestly, this early, that you don't know if this is how it's going to look 3-4 months from now.
Tucker is also interesting on the flip side of this conversation too, because he did flash a couple of times. This was a player that was downgraded by NFL teams because of a heart defect or a heart condition that they found at the combine or his pro. I can't remember when it was, but it was well before the draft. And then a player that should have been a day 2 pick ends up sliding to being undrafted, right, Michael? I don't think he was drafted at all, or he's a 7th round. He was super late. The NFL did not believe in him. But the talent's there. And now he could end up being in a better part of a committee than he ever was going to get in Tampa, right? Because we saw how when both those guys were healthy, Irving and Tucker, we saw how Tampa utilized both of them. Irving could go to a different situation, or I beg your pardon. See, now I'm getting them mixed up. Tucker could go to a different situation and actually have a better chance at higher volume than he ever did in Tampa. So that's another thing to look at too. Not necessarily saying you need to trade for him. I mean, FFPC Dynasty players have to cut down their rosters to 16 by the end of the month. Right. I don't know if Tucker's going to survive that on any team.
No.
But he's definitely, if you play in a deeper Dynasty league, he's definitely a player you want to take a look at when you try to collect all those backup running backs or committee running backs at the end of your bench. He's a great option for you for sure. All right, let's move on to receiver here, and I want to talk about Jalen Coker. This is a player who comes into his 2nd year in the NFL and was tendered exclusive rights as a free agent here by the Panthers. This would have been yesterday. In the 2025 season, at least to start off, he was hurt. He wasn't playing. But then when he ended the 2025 campaign, Michael really came on strong, especially in the playoffs. 9 catches, 134 yards, and a touchdown in the wild card round. Dave Canales, after the season, sometimes I think coaches don't like to announce like depth charts or award position. Some coach was just saying, I don't want to award positions or, depth chart positions in February or whatever it is. But Canales came out and said, yeah, he's our number 2 receiver, obviously behind Teteroa McMillan, who they utilized some serious draft capital last year to acquire. But Coker is the number 2. And it was 2 years ago that they invested in Xavier Legette early in the 2nd round too. So, and Coker's already passed him. I know they like to run, but they like to run when they had Rico Dowdle. Now that they have Hubbard and Brooks, I don't know if there's going to be a shift in philosophy there, and maybe we see more passing. I think Coker's a very interesting player, and a player, I don't necessarily think you can buy him cheap because everybody knows this information right now. But if I have him on my roster, I'm definitely planning on utilizing him. If I have to start 3 receivers plus a flex or in bye weeks for sure, he's going to be in my lineup. Very excited to see what he can accomplish in 2026, Michael.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think if you have him, I think you're thrilled because it looks like the sky's the limit on him. To your point, I don't know that I would expend a lot of, draft picks or what have you to try to get him if I don't. But, for me personally, I'm still kind of hesitant on that Carolina offense. I mean, I obviously Bryce Young showed flashes of being successful and being a good fantasy quarterback, but I'm hoping, this has to be the year for them, right? Like if it doesn't happen this year where they sort of get to that next level, I don't know that it's ever going to happen. So I think this is a make or break year for honestly everybody on that offense, but including Coker. But I think it does say a lot that Carolina is willing to sort of lock him down like they were. And do what they had to do to keep him. That's very clear that he's part of their plans. And so, if anything, I don't think Carolina has a lot of strengths necessarily, but it seems like receiver between him and McMillan is one of them. So, yeah if you have him, I think you're pretty happy. But yeah, I wouldn't rush out to try to get him if you don't.
In the never too early FFPC best ball tournament right now, and obviously this is redraft that I'll mention the ADP on. I'm looking at Jalen Coker going off the board as wide receiver 53 at the 1305. That's right after Jaden Reed, Jaden Higgins, right ahead of Tyreek Hill and Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston actually as well. But which I think is a fair price. I think that's a good deal if you can pick up Coker there for sure. All right, moving on to Alec Pierce, who probably is the most sought after wide receiver, at least in free agency. He was on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams, and he was quoted as saying he's earned the right to explore free agency. And hey, your team's not going to transition tag you. They're not going to franchise tag you. you've put up these last couple of years, what you've done in that offense, I'd say he's accurate. He has earned the right to explore free agency. Now, Adams was asking him about, how the return of Daniel Jones is going to affect his free agency decision, but he wants to see what's out there. I don't know. I mean, he may take less money to sign in Indy. I don't know if he, it's one of those things that sounds nice in theory, but I don't think players usually do that. And I know there's pressure on the NFLPA to not take less money if you could get more elsewhere. The Colts are just under $5 million over the cap. Obviously, you look at Tennessee, Las Vegas, Washington is another team as well. They all need a receiver and perhaps multiple receivers. And and actually the Jets as well. All four of those teams have a ton of cap space that they can throw at Alec Pierce. I think he is gone. I don't think he's in Indy next year. I think he's elsewhere, Michael. And I think as a result, the Colts restructure Michael Pittman rather than just outright cut him, because I don't think they can afford to lose Pierce and Pittman in this offense. I think this is good news for if he does move on. I think it's good news for Pierce. I think it's good news for Pittman, and I think it's good news for Tyler Warren as well.
Yeah, I to your earlier point, I think he should get that money. Like he should not hold back. I mean, and we kind of touched on it earlier with Buffalo. This is a great year to be the top receiver in free agency, meaning, if he's at the top of the list, he's going to bank pretty good. So I agree. I don't think he'll be back in Indianapolis. And look, like you said, there's a lot of teams that could use his services that have already talked about it, whether it's New England, whether it is Washington, maybe to pair with Terry McLaurin, who knows? But I don't think he'll be back. I think with Indianapolis, I kind of feel bad for them. They've kind of, they had that first half of the season where it looked like they were the number one seed, and then, they trade for Sauce Gardner and they think, hey, it's to the moon. But then you've got the Daniel Jones injury, and it kind of all went downhill from there. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of them. Certainly early in the season, right? Like we got to see what Daniel Jones when that return will be. But yeah, I think with Alec Pierce, with the Colts cap situation and the fact that they've got other guys. And look, I'm personally a fan of Josh Downs. I think he showed some flashes last year that I think they're going to be happy with to slot him in there. So, but yeah, I think he's gone, and I think he's going to get paid. And look, I think with Pierce, the big thing is just if he gets the opportunity. That was what was kind of holding him back in Indianapolis, was there were just a lot of mouths to feed. But if he goes somewhere for a lot of money, they're going to make sure he's the guy, And I think for fantasy purposes, like I said, if you have him now, I think you're going to be pretty happy with him when the season starts.
2024, 37 catches for 824 yards and 7 touchdowns. And while that sounds amazing with 22.3 yards per catch, look what he did in 25. He gets over 1,000 yards last year, Michael, on 47 catches. Didn't even get 50 catches, and he goes over 1,000 yards. Also gets 6 touchdowns as well. I would assume with the new opportunity that presents to him, that yards per catch is going to go way down, but the explosiveness does not go away. That you're talking 70, 80 catches for him. And certainly, over 1,000 yards again, maybe even 1,100 or so if he gets that many more targets. I've never really been a big Alec Pierce guy. And I think it's just, I've kind of typecast him in I'm like a Hollywood director, right? Like I've typecasted Alec Pierce in my mind that he can only play this field flipper role when he's never really had the opportunity to be the possession guy, to be the X receiver. And you know what? Until he has the opportunity, we won't know for sure. But I would like to see a team utilize him that way. And I think, to your point, if any of these teams pay him, they're at least going to give him a shot.
Yeah, and look, the skill set he has of stretching the field like that is rare. I mean, that's not, that's very uncommon. And so you're going to have teams that specifically want him for that role. So I don't think his role is going to change a whole lot. I mean, yes, if he, pays or gets paid a lot of money, he'll get more targets, but they're going to pay him to go downfield. And so I think as long as he's healthy, and obviously he's got a quarterback with the arm to do it, I think he's going to be just fine. So
we move on to talk about Kyler Murray. The release of Kyler Murray by the Arizona Cardinals. This is interesting for Superflex leagues for sure on what you're supposed to do with him. Now, I'll just briefly bring this up. I don't like to talk a whole lot of rumors on this show because a lot of times they just never happen, right? And him to the Vikings might never happen. There's a very real possibility that he signs with Miami or Atlanta or the Jets or something like that. Jonathan Jones, who covers the NFL for CBS Sports, believes that the Vikings are not only in the mix, but they're considering signing Murray. They want to get a veteran quarterback to compete with J.J. McCarthy, who they may just be done with, quite frankly.
Right.
He's 28 years old, Murray is, and the Cardinals owe him just under $37 million in guaranteed money. Murray actually had a higher Pro Football Focus score, for those of you who believe in it, than J.J. McCarthy. And obviously, the legs with Murray keeps you, very, very fantasy relevant, regardless of the team you're on. We've saw Justin Fields, a guy who just failed to play the quarterback position adequately at an NFL level, still be fantasy worthy, for sure.
Right.
So when we look at Murray, he could sign for the veterans minimum of just over $1 million. He could start for the Vikings. We know that he's moved on. I can't remember. I think I was talking to Paul Brenton last night about this on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, a longtime FFPC player, Dynasty champion. He believes Murray is going to be starting somewhere this year. So I think that makes it a little bit easier if we can visualize this ourselves in Superflex leagues. If we can visualize Murray, starting somewhere, it makes it more palatable to keep him on our roster. Is that the way you would sort of handle it? That Murray's going to be starting somewhere? Because there is a non-zero chance he could be a backup, especially, given that he doesn't have to be making a lot of money from any of these NFL teams. They could sign him and pay him as a backup.
Sure. Well, I'll say first, the whole thing is just odd to me, honestly, with Arizona, meaning I don't know if I guess they think they could do better, or maybe they just wanted to clean house, with a new sort of coaching regime there. I mean, they're certainly not going to get better in the draft at the position where they're drafting. So the whole thing just sort of reeks of, hey, they just want to wash their hands of it and move on. And it isn't necessarily a reflection of Murray and sort of his talent. It's more like, okay, the Cardinals brass sort of just figured, hey, this isn't the guy. We're going to go in a different direction. So now to your question, I think he absolutely starts because, I think he's the best option out there when it comes to free agency for sure. And like I said, there's just not that many options in the draft that are going to, be starters next year. I mean, we may have one, possibly two, I think at most. So yeah, whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Miami, there's plenty of teams that could absolutely do better at quarterback. And especially like you said with Murray, I'd like to think he's been better than Justin Fields so far. I mean, with the legs, that's very similar. But as far as passing goes, he definitely had more success than Fields did over the course of his career. So yeah, I would absolutely operate with him as a starter, no matter where he ended up. Because I think if any team signs him, I don't know that they're gonna have a lot better options than that. Why else would you bring him in unless you wanted to improve upon the position already?
I think it's going to be interesting to see where he goes because as I look at the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball tournament right now, ADP on Kyler Murray, quarterback 23 at the 1201. And I think that, that's like CJ Stroud, Malik Willis territory or whatever. I think once he signs somewhere, I think his ADP shoots up well inside the top 20 that we know where it's going to be. I mean, even if it's New York, he's got Garrett Wilson there. He's got Mason Taylor there, and they could invest in, a first round receiver, like Mekhi Lemon or somebody like that this year as well. And then all of a sudden that job's not looking as bad. I mean,
right.
The team with Aaron Glenn and Frank Reich and the offense still is not looking great,
right.
But at least the personnel would be improved around him as well. Okay, let's move on to, I just mentioned him before. I want to get into this RJ Harvey conversation here with you, Michael. The Athletics, Nick, and I'm going to butcher his name, Kosmider, covers the Broncos for The Athletic. That's what we need to know. He's the Broncos beat reporter for The Athletic. He said that the Broncos are going to, quote, closely examine the veteran running back market. So I was alluding to this before, if you thought you had something in RJ Harvey last year, you kind of did, but it wasn't the home run you thought you had. And I think that's sort of how we have to look at it this year too. They may not bring J.K. Dobbins back. They still could. And then we know maybe that's better because we know how they sort of treat Dobbins and Harvey when both of them are on the same team. It could also be, ETN. It could also be Walker. It could also be Dowdle, which would obviously put a huge dent into RJ Harvey's not only dynasty value, but 2026 value as well. I think if you own Harvey, Michael, you're probably rooting for Dobbins to come back because all three of those other guys, they're probably going to have to pay more. And if you're paying more for them, you're probably going to utilize them more. But the moral of the story is this. Harvey's committee is not going anywhere. He is not going to be a bell cow for Denver, and he may not be good enough to ever be a bell cow for Denver. He's 25 years old, right? I mean, an older running back coming into his second year in the league, and Sean Payton at many times last year did not trust him. Like he was bringing in guys like Jaleel McLaughlin in there instead of Harvey. So I think the moral of the story is this. I would not sell on Harvey because I think everybody knows that he's going to be in a committee. I do think that I would be striking for Harvey if we see a Dobbins signing. I don't think that comes next week because nobody's going to sign Dobbins right away. They're going to wait to see where Walker and ETN and Dowdle go first. But I think that's the time you strike on Harvey is if all three of those running backs go elsewhere. And maybe Algier too. I should lump in Tyler Algier on that because I think he could really hurt Harvey. But I think that's when you start looking at acquiring Harvey in dynasty leagues is if the big guys miss Denver, then Harvey could be not wheels up, but in for a solid fantasy season.
Yeah, well, and I sort of look at Sean Payton's history with running backs, dating back to New Orleans, and he's always been the kind of coach that utilized sort of that 1-2 punch, right? Like he does not have a bell cow where he's going to give a guy 250, 300 carries by himself. He's going to utilize guys. And I think, even going into last season, that should have been the expectation with Harvey is, hey, he's not going to lead the team necessarily in carries, but he is going to be a big part of it if he earns the trust of Payton, right? And I think the hope was, hey, he's going to fill out the Kamara role, right, that Payton had in New Orleans where, hey, he's receiving out of the backfield, he can rush it. He's just a playmaker. And look, I think we all hoped and assumed that would happen, just because we trusted Sean Payton's kind of judgment on that. I don't know that it did, at least not this first year. And so I think that's what we have to keep in mind with Harvey is, look, that is sort of the role he's ticketed for. Now, it's up to him to fulfill it, right? Like the runway is there for him to be the Kamara role in a Sean Payton offense. It's now going to be up to him to do it. And so to your point, yeah, I think people just have to assume they're going to bring someone else in, whether that's going to be early or late or what have you. Don't expect Harvey to be the lead guy that just takes it 300 times a year. It's not going to happen. So, but if he does bring back a Dobbins or another veteran, on a minimum deal or close to it, then I think you're perfectly fine to keep Harvey sort of where he's at least as far as fantasy valuation goes right now. That, hey, he's going to be very involved. He's going to have his scoring chances. But just don't assume he's going to get 20 carries a game.
Last thing I want to bring up in this segment, and we'll go back to the Bears, the same place we let off the segment. We'll go back there because the other piece of news that happened before they traded DJ Moore to the Bills was that their center, Drew Dahlman, who just signed a 3-year, $42 million contract prior to the 2025 season, has decided to hang it up. And he's going to retire from the NFL at age 27, only played 5 years in the league and had a 72.6, PFF grade at playing the center position last year. And Pro Bowler. Like, this is a good center. He was good in Atlanta. He was good in Chicago. And I wonder how this affects not only Caleb Williams, but how does this affect the ground game with DeAndre Swift, with Kyle Monangai? Obviously, Chicago is going to have ample time to try to replace him, but the Bears couldn't have seen this coming. And now a new center, like sort of the quarterback for the offensive line. I don't want to read too much into it, Michael, but how significant of a loss is this for the Bears when it comes to fantasy purposes with the ground game and Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it was a surprise for sure. I'm sure the Bears didn't expect it, certainly when they re-signed him before. I think in a vacuum by itself, I think if they were to keep, most of the offense intact, even after the Moore trade, yes, it will have an impact. I don't know that it's necessarily the end of the world, but certainly if there are other pieces that change and that are downgraded, then that change sort of is amplified, right? Meaning, hey, he could have been sort of shoring up whatever weaknesses they had other places in the offensive line or on the offense. So yeah, I to your point, I wouldn't read too much into it yet, but certainly if there's other sort of dominoes to fall on the offense, it's going to be much more glaring than it is right now by itself.
Great stuff from you, Michael, here in this first segment. I want to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to sort of analyze what you think about some of these rookies post NFL Combine. We'll get into Mike Washington. We have Mr. Bakes a lot in the chat having a question about Elijah Surratt. We'll get into him, the two big quarterbacks, and obviously the two big tight ends as well. Mm-hmm. He is Michael Moore from Dynasty League Football and Fantasy Pros. I'm Eric Balkman. You are watching FFPC Insider Access. Don't go anywhere. We have so much more to come on tonight's program. Stick around. We'll be right back. The FFPC Baby Gorilla is indeed live for 2026. If you've always wanted to play high-stakes fantasy football, this is the perfect entry point for you. It's only going to set you back $125 to have a team in this tournament, and you can win a $100,000 grand prize. Check it out. The Baby Gorilla is obviously the little brother of the Big Gorilla, which we started offering last year. It's back again this year. A $1 million grand prize, $350 to enter this competition. You get a $50 discount on every third team. The 7 Bananas promo is live. If you keep randomly getting that 7 pick multiple times in a row, we're going to give you some free teams. You get it twice in a row, free FFPC best ball tournament team. 3 times in a row, main event team. 4 times in a row, you get that high society $10,000 entry fee into the High Society League. And then if you get it 5 times in a row, you either get 50 grand cash or a jungle safari for 4, whatever you want. The early rampage tournament going on right now, it's the first 200 leagues of the Big Gorilla. So when you are registering now, you're actually getting in for 2 tournaments for the price of 1. $350 gets you in the Big Gorilla and the early rampage tournament, a $25,000 grand prize available there. Don't forget about our Never Too Early Best Ball and Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournaments going on right now as well. For the Never Too Early tournament, $125 to enter a $40,000 grand prize, $35 to enter the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournament, $10,000 grand prize there as well. MyFFPC.com is where to go. And by the way, while you're there, pick up an orphan team or 2 with plenty of FFPC Dynasty and Empire Dynasty teams available there for as little as $1. You can manage your FFPC Dynasty teams to greatness. It's all available at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. FFPC Insider Access rolls on here tonight. It is March 5th, 2026. We're not too far away from the NFL draft, and we have to start talking rookies. Who better to talk about rookies with than Michael Moore from Dynasty League Football and Fantasy Pros? One of the things I have done, Michael, and by the way, follow Michael on X at DLF_Moore. One of the things that I have avoided on this show and I'm going to violate both of them in this segment. Haven't talked a whole lot of quarterbacks on this show. Usually I'm focused on running backs, receivers, and tight ends. And we're going to change that. We're going to talk a lot of quarterbacks here. I guess not necessarily in this segment, but the next segment we will. And I haven't talked a whole lot of Jeremiah Love because I feel like what is there to say that hasn't been said already? I am of the belief that this guy, once he is drafted, he's probably, he's obviously a top 10 dynasty running back, probably top 5. Some would even put him in the top 3. I don't know if I can go top 3 yet, but definitely top 5 I could get behind. Is there any, I don't think he's going to bust, especially with the expected draft capital that he's going to get. What are the holes on this? What are we missing on this? He's got to have some weakness somewhere. If he does fail in the NFL, why will he fail? Will it be because of the team that drafted him, not putting enough blocking around him, not putting enough playmakers around him, that defenses can just key on him? Every time I read something about Love or hear something about Love, it's so effusive in their praise for him. I'm like, God, he could fail though, right? Couldn't he? I don't know. I'll let you weigh in on it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, it's very hard to know to identify what, if any, weaknesses there are. He's truly one of the best running back prospects we've had in a long time. He's up there with the Saquon Barkleys of the world and the Bijan Robinsons of the world. So I think from a fantasy perspective, yeah, as we know, running back is such a position contingent on the offense around them, the offensive line, play calling, etc. So yeah, if there's going to be a downfall, it's going to be that. It's somebody drafting him and then maybe not using him as much as his dynasty managers would have hoped, certainly after they draft him first overall, which I'm guessing is where he's going to go. So yeah, I'm with you. At the moment, it's cliche, but it seems like he's the real deal. He's the complete package there. So.
Do you have, before we talk about Mike Washington, let me preface this by asking you, do you have a favorite number 2 running back in this class? Because I've changed my mind about 17 times on who my number 2 running back is on this. I can't settle on one. Have you? Is there anybody that stands out?
No, it's just Love at that top tier, obviously, and then seemingly everyone else behind that. So, and again, there isn't just a clear-cut guy behind him. So whether it is Mike Washington or some of the others, or even Jeremiah Love's teammate at Notre Dame, there's so many guys and there's so many players and we don't know what the teams are going to be looking for specifically, right? That which is the running back that sort of fits the mold they're looking for. That's the thing that's so contingent on the team itself. So yeah, it's especially at running back, a lot of it for dynasty rookie draft purposes is obviously going to depend on the team they were drafted by, except for Love. Love is he's a slam dunk. I know you don't want to hear more of it, but I don't know what to say.
Well, it is what it is. Obviously once he gets to the league, maybe we'll see some things that we didn't. But right now, it's tough to. Honestly, the most annoying thing about Jeremiah Love, I have no 101 rookie picks this year. Maybe I need to get on that and make to get up there. So
well, look, that means you did. But that means you did well. Hopefully, it means you weren't the worst team in the league. So.
Yes, that's a good point. That's the silver lining, I guess. But at this point, I'd much rather have
right.
101. Think about all those people with the 1, and I do have a 102 this year in one of my leagues. That is super frustrating. Because there's a deep yawning chasm to move up from 102 to 101 this year for sure. We'll bring up Mike Washington because I do think that based on some of the stuff that I was reading from people I respect, that Mike Washington is some of those people will have him as their number 2 running back after what he did at the combine. A 4.33 40 at 6'1", 223 pounds. That is 99th percentile 40 time, and his speed score, weight adjusted speed score is I don't know if it was 130, but it was definitely higher than 120. We knew he was athletic. I didn't think he was this athletic. I was thinking this guy was probably going to be a day 3 pick, and Michael, maybe he still is a day 3 pick, but I think he sneaks into day 2. What do you think? Not necessarily floor and ceiling, but what do you think? How big is the range of outcomes for Mike Washington as a rookie in 2026? How do you envision a player like this performing at the next level?
Well, and look, I may be a little more bullish than you on him, but I think he could sneak into the second round, quite honestly, in the second day. I think that combine, I think, probably got the attention of a lot of teams that maybe were a little skeptical, just based on his production before, but this sort of solidified that. And then again, I go back to, especially with running backs, that every team's kind of different on what they're looking for as far as the playing style goes. So as far as the kind of range of outcomes, I mean, again, he could be drafted as sort of a complement to be the speedster in the backfield for a team, or he could end up on a team that has no clear-cut kind of starter and clear-cut running back that is going to dominate the carries, and he could end up, moving up the depth chart there. So, but I do believe he's a second-day pick, personally. I think he's solidified that, whether it's the second round, whether it's the third round, either one, I think he's going to be going in that range there.
Yeah, and I think we have to adjust to that, because I think you're right on that as far as how much he helped himself at the combine. And maybe you're right. Maybe he never was going to be a day 3 pick, but certainly round 2 definitely in within his sights. Now, this is a guy who may get drafted, he may not. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on one Eli Heidenreich out of the Naval Academy. He is 6 foot, 206. A running back, but he caught a lot of passes. Navy never throws the ball at all. And yet this guy somehow caught 51 passes this past year. And this was all, by the way, he had 77 rushing attempts on the season too. Ends up getting into the end zone 9 times, explosive. Is this, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because I definitely want to talk receivers. Is this a guy that you would take a chance on in round 3 or round 4 of your rookie draft? Or is this just going to be a gadget guy that never amounts to anything?
Round 3 that seems a little high, but certainly round 4 and certainly in that flyer territory, absolutely, because I think that's going to be what happens in the actual NFL draft. I think you're going to get to the later rounds. And again, not to say he's absolutely going to get drafted, but look, let's face it, the round 6 and 7, that's where teams are taking flyers on guys. And they're going to be taking flyers on the guys that are physical specimens that sort of stuck out in one way or another. And he definitely did, like you said, with the receiving game. He helped his case at the combine as well. So it's absolutely possible that a team that drafts him, in the 7th round. I mean, look, we had the Bears and Kyle Monangai last year in the 7th round, and he ended up being very productive and for where he was drafted, very valuable. So yeah, I think it's certainly a thing to keep an eye on. If you're drafting your rookie draft before the actual draft, I would take a flyer on him. I mean, I would wait until sort of the latter rounds for sure, the very end, but there certainly are worse picks you could make in that range.
He's a fun pick too. I mean, fantasy football is supposed to be fun. Yeah. Like take a shot on him on the 4th round just to see what happens. Maybe it's nothing, and then it's easy to move on from at that point.
And that's why people took Cam Scadaboo last year, because it was fun.
It was,
I mean, it was not the typical mold, but hey, people saw him play at Arizona State certainly towards the end of the season, and I thought, hey, that seems like a fun guy. And look, it worked out. Before the injury anyway, it worked out.
Let's move on to players that will be for sure drafted, and definitely a player who's going to go in the 1st round, despite the slow 40 time at the combine, is Carnell Tate. Officially, he ran a 4.53, and unofficially he ran a 4.54 both times he ran it. 6'2", 192 pounds. A lot of people have him as their wide receiver 1. There's 40 gate with Tate. Some people saying that, or some team officials saying that they hand timed him at like 4.43, 4.44 rather than the 4.53. And I know they use like very official high tech lasers and everything to figure out the 40. So I'm more betting on that rather than the hand timing. Does this impact his slower than expected 40 time? Affect you at all when you consider the big 3 at wide receiver this year with Tate, Lemon, and Tyson? Does that change Tate around at all, given that these 3 guys are so tightly bunched?
Honestly, for me, it doesn't. I mean, obviously, it's slower than I think we either thought or hoped it would be. But at the same time, I think the resume and what he did at Ohio State is it's too much to ignore, I think, at this point, But let's face it, the 40 time, while important, is a single data point. And if that's the one thing that is sort of, a demerit on his resume, that's the only thing, meaning everything else he's done exceptionally well at, I'm not too worried about that. If there were some other things or some other areas that he disappointed in, then yes, I think that would be certainly a conversation. But, look, let's also face it. It's a slower time in the NFL year. So people gotta make news stories about something. And so I think this was a good sort of a lull there for something like this to bubble up. But I think when teams are evaluating him and sort of determining, hey, are we going to spend a first round pick on him? I don't think this is going to factor in at all.
The top three right now, I've changed the order on mine. I'm sure you'll change the order on yours. We probably will for sure change the order on how we feel about these guys after the NFL draft. As it stands right now, when we talk about Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, what order do you have them ranked in right now, Michael, out of those three?
Just like you said it, I got Tate 1, I got Tyson 2, and Lemon 3. But again, they're all very much in that tier though. So I can't knock someone in a rookie draft, again, either before or after the actual draft, for taking either one of those guys 1, 2, or 3. I think they're fairly interchangeable. I don't think, unlike the running back position where there's a clear-cut guy, I don't think there's a lot of separation with those guys, and look, as we know, we may be wrong a year or two from now, but at this point, they have very good resumes, and I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them.
Yeah. And obviously draft capital, landing spot, that's going to be huge. We won't have to make, or at least I won't have to make, and FFPC Dynasty players aren't going to have to make their decision on how to handle these guys until after the NFL draft. That's when all the FFPC rookie drafts are, and all the leagues I'm in, that's how they are as well. So I'll see what happens and how it shakes out. I don't know. I feel like even before the combine, and I don't know how much, I don't think I put a whole lot of stock into, like the weird interviews and everything that Lemon was giving and reportedly wasn't all that great in team interviews, although that wasn't reported by sort of the Rappaports and the Schefters of the world. So I don't know how much stock I put into that. I think I always had Lemon 3 because I view, like, for Dynasty, I'm always trying to swing for the home runs. Like, I always want to get that elite talent. And I just feel like the upside with Tate and Tyson are higher than Makai Lemon. And I go back and forth between Tate and Tyson because I think Tyson has the higher upside, but I am concerned with all the injuries that he suffered in college. And maybe that means nothing in the pros. Adrian Peterson was hurt all the time in college, and then he never got hurt in the pros. And then he tears his ACL, and he's like back like 3 weeks later or whatever, something insane like that. So you just never know. So I've gone back and forth between Tate and Tyson. Right now I have Tate ahead of Tyson, but it's close. But I do think those two, at least in my opinion, for how I play Dynasty, those two have separated themselves a little bit more over Makai Lemon for me at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I will say Tyson was my number one before the season started, the college season in 2025. So, but to your point, there was just some stuff. And let's face it, Arizona State in general was kind of disappointing, at least relative to the year they had before. So, and now granted that wasn't obviously Jordan Tyson's fault, but, it certainly is sort of something you got to look at, especially when you're leaving school at that point and going right into the NFL draft. So, but yeah, it's tough, and especially with receivers, as we know. I mean, you can look at their physical attributes and their production, but a lot of it comes down to where they're drafted, who's coaching them, who their quarterback is, and sort of, hey, are they able to kind of take that to the next level?
We have a question in the YouTube chat right now from Mr. Bakes a Lot. He wants to know, does Elijah Surratt get drafted in the second round of the 2026 NFL draft or later? I think, Michael, he is more likely to go in the first round than he is to go later in the second round. I think he's a slam dunk second round pick. I think he might sneak into the first round. I don't think he makes it to the third at all. Your thoughts on Surratt and where you think he's going to go in the actual NFL draft?
So I think definitely the second. That's where I would have him pegged. I don't see him in the first. And again, not a knock against him. I just think there's a lot of receivers that are sort of in the pool there and sort of in the offing for a lot of teams looking for receivers, along with just other positions that are they've got a lot of prospects in the first round. So, but I still like him though, meaning it's not a knock that he's, I think he's going to be taken in the second. I think he's very good. And look, let's face it, when you've got a team drafting a quarterback very high, that's sort of doing a reset on offense, they tend to take, a receiver to sort of pair with that quarterback. So could I see the Raiders, after they draft Mendoza first overall, sort of taking his teammate to kind of pair him up in the second or and if he does flip to the third, taking him there, yeah, I could see that, but I just think there's a lot of other receivers ahead of him to be going in the first.
I think Surratt's the type of guy too that he's not going to be a game breaker, but I don't think he has to be. He could be the type of guy in the NFL once he gets there, where he's big enough. He's 6'2", 210. He's big enough to bully littler corners. He has a pretty big wide catch radius, and you don't have to be explosive when you have that physicality, right? Maybe he's just like Michael Pittman, right? Like 70 catches, 950 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Hey, I'll take that. Even if that's his prime, I'd take that.
Yeah.
And certainly I think he could be even bigger than that. We'll see once he gets to the next level. But yeah, I think to answer your question, Bakes, we both think, both Michael and I, second round is where he's destined to go in this year's draft.
Well, and to kind of add on that too, with just like rookie drafts in the NFL draft, those guys are going for the home run too. And Surratt, again, I think we agree, will be a very productive pro, but he's not going to be the guy that a team takes a chance on for the home run, right? To be that elite, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type. That's not his thing. But at the same time, if he's the second option on a very good offense, he still will be very fantasy relevant. He'll still be very productive. But I think teams are just going to wait on a player like that. They're not going to spend a first round pick necessarily on that type of role. They're going to wait for the second or third, but still be very valuable in that spot.
The thing is with Surratt, and obviously a big part of the reason Indiana's offense was so good was Fernando Mendoza, obviously. But Surratt played opposite Omar Cooper, who's a burner, right? And he could be that lid lifter. He could be that field flipper. Surratt never had to do that. And part of the reason that he was so successful was because defenses had to worry about Cooper's speed on the other side. Or in the spot or wherever
right.
It was. And that could, pair Surratt up with a deep guy, a deep threat on the next level and just watch him cook. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to like with Surratt. Okay, these next guys, I don't want to pretend I know a lot about him yet. I know a little bit, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I'm going to kick things off with Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. A player I was kind of out on. Like initially, I didn't think he was going to be anything special, and now I think he's picking up steam in draft pundit circles. 6'1", 206, decent size, a fairly athletic guy. I think he's a second round pick too. And I think at the next level, I don't think he'll ever be an alpha. I don't think he'll ever be a 1A, but this is the type of guy that I think could be a good number 2 on an NFL team. Maybe not this year, but maybe year 2, year 3. And I'm starting to be more bullish about Jeremy Bernard. How do you feel about Bernard, Michael?
Yeah, I very similar. I mean, look, anytime you've got a productive receiver out of Alabama, it's going to get attention, and he's automatically going to sort of get the benefit of the doubt, I think, of, hey, he's got a leg up on the other receivers as far as being a pro goes. And like you said, he's not flashy. It's kind of in the Surratt mode where, hey, he's not that elite athletic, specimen, but he's productive, and he's. Again, I think those kinds of guys, much in the real draft, takes in the first round and kind of swings for the fences. But I think they're absolutely going to be eyeing them in the second, third round, and even to the point of trading up for a guy like that. They may think, hey, this guy we can slot him in immediately. He's going to contribute, and if we can get him in this spot, that second to third round range, I think they would jump all over that. And again, to beat a dead horse, a lot of it will depend on the landing spot. But yeah. I think teams, if they make an effort to draft him, especially if they trade up for him, that's worth something, and I think he should be valued that way.
Yeah, and I think he will be valued that way by NFL teams and obviously dynasty owners too. Once he gets drafted, Chris, help me out with this, Michael. Chris Brazel out of Tennessee. Are we going with Brazel or is it Brazel?
Mm-hmm. I think it's Brazel. At least I've been saying Brazel. So you and I will both go with Brazel. So.
You are the experts. I'm going to roll with Brazel. So he's an interesting cat because his dad played in the NFL, so the bloodlines are there. 6'4", 198, obviously good size. Could probably bulk up a little bit more, but that'll probably come. And he's fast, and he had a great combine. He looked very good. The fly in the ointment, the monkey in the wrench, as John McClane would say, is the fact that he played at Tennessee. And I don't think it's just me. I think a lot of people struggle with sort of analyzing the games of Tennessee receivers because the Volunteers offense is so bizarre and in the way they run it, it doesn't really translate well to the NFL. And yet I'm going to ask you the difficult question anyway. How do we handle Brazel? Not only in dynasty leagues when the rookie drafts roll around, but how do we handle him right now in best ball leagues? Is this a guy that we want to be in business with either in dynasty or in 2026 best ball drafts?
Yeah. So, I mean, unlike the kind of guys we were talking about before, physically, I mean, he could be pretty elite. He could be pretty up there when it comes to speed and size, etc. So certainly for best ball, I think that obviously translates more, meaning best ball is all about, high risk, high reward. And I think he fits that for that. So as far as dynasty goes, again, I don't know that he's the kind of guy that you want to swing for the fences for, or you think is going to sort of hit a home run. But certainly, when it comes to rookie drafts, late first, early second, I think he's the ideal pick because, again, he's got the physical attributes. So that part isn't in question. But if he can put it together and sort of translate that into the next level and obviously land on a situation where he's going to get the opportunity, because, again, that's as big a part of this as anything, then I think it would be worth it. But, yeah, I mean, physically he's there. So, again, we don't have to worry about that part. It's more about, okay, he's going to get the opportunity. What is he going to do with it?
Yeah. And that's what we have to figure out. I don't know. Because some of them are great. T. Higgins is awesome. But then some other, Cordell Patterson was just a gadget guy. You know what I mean? It's just, it's
right.
Tough. It's tough.
Well, and again, it's in that range. Obviously, when you're picking at the top of rookie drafts, best ball drafts, there's a pretty solid tier. I mean, everyone kind of agrees who's the cream rising to the top there. But it's in those middle rounds, that middle range that, I don't want to say it's a crapshoot, but again, everyone's sort of got a different, method as far as what they're looking for, And so he's the kind of guy that for some people, if they really value the physical, he's going to be up there and he's going to be drafted very high. If you're looking at the sort of pedigree and sort of the, not necessarily his family pedigree, but sort of the college resume, that might give you a little pause. But yeah, so it's not exact science by any means. That's why we're talking about it. So.
Listen, far be it for me to helmet scout, but I'm just going to bring this up. These are the last Tennessee Volunteer receivers that were drafted into the NFL draft. Dante Thornton, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, Velus Jones Jr., Josh Palmer, Juwan Jennings, Josh Malone, Justin Hunter, I think that, and Cordell Patterson in 2013. Denarius Moore in 2011. We'll stop there. There's not a lot of winners on that list. Now, I know they all didn't play in the same offense, the Josh Heupel offense, but I mean, when I go back, however many years that was, 12 years, and the best one I'm finding is Juwan Jennings. I don't know. Maybe it's helmet scouting. Maybe it's not a coincidence. And so it does give me pause with Chris Brazel a little bit here. I'm not averse to never drafting him. I'll draft anybody anywhere at least once just to have him on my team, right? I mean, that's a bit of exaggeration, but I'm not definitely not targeting him, and I'm a little bit worried about his dynasty stock.
Sure. Well, and to sort of put it in perspective, at least talking about the guys we were just talking about, I would absolutely draft him after Surratt and Bernard, if that
Yes.
kind of gives an
100%.
idea, right? Because and for me personally, and again, everyone's method is different. I'm more the production and aid, that kind of stuff. That's the things that I really value when I'm looking at rookie drafts. And so for guys like Surratt and Bernard, those guys fit that mold, and I feel much more comfortable taking those guys than I would about Brazel. Not to say I wouldn't draft Brazel, depending on where he is available, because I absolutely think that, hey, he's a very good lottery ticket to have. But if I'm sort of trying to give myself the best odds of a player that's going to produce, I'm going to take Surratt and Bernard over Brazel. So
I'll tell you one guy that I would take Brazel over, and that's Zechariah Branch. I am. This guy does not intrigue me at all. I know he's super fast, but at the same time, dude is 5'9", 177. I know he has short arms. That doesn't necessarily bother me. But what bothers me is he's not a proficient route runner. He's never been a proficient route runner. I know you could be coached up to be a better route runner in the pros, but I would rather draft the guys on my team that can already do that and not have to work towards it. And, so many of his targets were behind the line of scrimmage, like these schemed up plays for Branch at Georgia. I know there's people excited about drafting him. I am not one of those players. In this case, I'd rather have Brazel over Branch. Maybe you could talk me off the ledge with Branch, and maybe I'm being too harsh on him. How do you view this prospect?
I mean, I think I'm on the ledge there with you, man. Like, I mean, to your point, I mean, yeah, the size, honestly, and again, this is me, but that sort of size, I think, does not lend itself well to being a consistent, I would say, fantasy receiver. Not to say that, hey, on a real NFL team that they won't be able to design plays and he won't be able to contribute. I'm sure they will. But when it comes to your fantasy team, there's just too much sort of unknowns there. And look, he would really have to be an elite, everything else besides the size to even get on the field to be a consistent contributor. And that scares me. And so I'm sorry, but I'm there with you. So you and I are going to jump off the ledge together, I think. So
yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to jump, off the ledge. But like, here's the thing with Branch. I always like to say I'd like to have players, every player somewhere. I think I'm good with it if I get Branch anywhere in rookie drafts this year. Again, depending upon the landing spot, where maybe I'd want to take a chance on him at that point. But just the profile. Nothing excites me about Branch as a professional football player. A guy I was out on, and maybe I got to come back in, is Jacoby Lane, the running mate of Mekhi Lemon at USC last year. Pretty impressive combine here from Jacoby Lane. Obviously, the production was there. And I know JJ Zach Reason has his teammate score in his ZAP model for his prospect guide for late round. And certainly Lane, without Mekhi Lemon, maybe the production would have been even higher because he didn't have to deal with Lemon. I don't know, dude. Like, I think this guy is probably a second round pick, definitely third round pick. He's a day 2 pick for sure. And now I'm starting to entertain him again. I don't want to put too much stock into the combine, but when he showed out as well as he did, it's hard not to just let that go unnoticed.
Oh, absolutely. So this is going to be a sort of classic boomer bust situation where, if you just judged it based off what happened during the season, during his college season, you'd probably go, yeah, I don't know about that. But then, like you said, he balled out at the combine, which made people sort of rethink that, and now they're sort of thinking, like you said, well, maybe he just didn't get enough opportunity, and maybe if he had more play, all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's absolutely going to be teams that take a chance on the physical side of things for sure. And look, I think he absolutely has the capability to develop into a very good player, a very, I'm not going to say necessarily elite yet, but certainly a serviceable, productive receiver. And so that's going to be, whether it's rookie drafts, whether it's the actual draft, that's going to be a guy that's a lottery ticket in every sense of the term. So.
And for me, like I don't know, like you're probably right, but I view him a little bit less as a lottery ticket than I did prior to the combine because his 40 was so good and the vertical was good and the gauntlet too. And we actually involved the football into this. He looked good on that. He was making plays and I don't know, like so I'm starting to look at. I know there's a guy I drafted against Super Bowl weekend. At this thing for the KFFSC and at Caesars in Southern Indiana. And he drafted Jacoby Lane everywhere. And I'm like, God, maybe I got to take a second look at Lane. And I think he had the right idea. I think as far as best ball goes, and definitely for dynasty rookie drafts, when they come up at the start of May, he's a guy I'll be taking a long, hard look at, regardless of where he lands too. I think the talent is there. The talent is definitely there.
Yeah.
We can touch on quarterbacks here. Is there anything that you can add about Fernando Mendoza that has not already been added? I guess I'll frame the question this: how serious, if you need a quarterback in a super flex league, and you have the 101, would you take Mendoza over Jeremiah Love?
I wouldn't, no. And that's not to say that I don't think Mendoza's not going to be good. I think he is. But and if this were most other years, I would absolutely take Mendoza, but I think Love is just in a level by himself, quite honestly. I mean, like I said, he's the best running back prospect in a long time. So, but I do think Mendoza though is absolutely worthy of that second pick in Superflex leagues. Because look, I'm a fan. I think he's going to be successful. I know he may not compare to quarterback prospects of prior years. Like I'm not saying he's on the level of a Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence or what have you. But look, he's going to walk in to Las Vegas as the starter, and I think they're going to try to add a lot of pieces around him. I know they're going through a full reset there, and so I would not be, I guess, I wouldn't be afraid if he were, say, my second quarterback on a super flex league, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It 100% does. The other quarterback is Ty Simpson here in the NFL draft. I don't think he goes first round. I think he probably goes second round. I don't know. I feel like he's being pushed up because just of a lack of quality quarterbacks. I'm kind of out on Ty Simpson. There's just he didn't have enough starts. I mean, it took him forever to get on the field of the Alabama. Right. And kudos to him for sticking around that long without transferring. But my God, I mean, one of the best indicators of NFL success is having, 3 dozen, 4 dozen starts, collegiate starts. And he's got 15? I mean, it's not a lot. So I have serious misgivings about Ty Simpson, even in Superflex rookie drafts here, Michael.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, and like you said, the lack of starts is a problem, and the fact that he couldn't honestly beat out Jalen Milroe for 2 years at Alabama, also a problem. Meaning, if he were really, first round material, surely he would beat out a quarterback that wasn't drafted in the first round himself. So, and that's in a year that we're in now, where there isn't any other quarterback prospect out there worth talking about after Mendoza. So. Yeah, I mean, and look, could he be sort of artificially boosted because there are no other quarterbacks? He could, but yeah, I mean, I recall I wrote an article, and I think it was back even in my PFF days when Mitchell Trubisky was drafted, and the concern I had because he didn't have a lot of starts either at North Carolina, and yet he was drafted so high. But it turned out, yeah, that was the case. He didn't have the experience, and it showed, and he didn't end up being certainly worthy of the pick that he was drafted in. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I would be surprised if he got drafted at the end of the first. I think there was a possibility, maybe the Rams, just because I think they're absolutely looking for kind of a successor. But look, they traded the late first now for a quarterback, so that option's out the window now too. So. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think this class of quarterbacks is just not great. Outside of Mendoza, I don't think it's worth looking at.
The tight end class, I mean, I don't know. The only 2 guys that kind of excite me are Kenyon Sadiq and Eli Stowers. And I think that when it comes to these tight ends, everybody talks about how athletic they are, Michael, and no argument for me. I mean, they're super athletic. they're also not super big for tight ends, right? And so I would assume just on the surface that these guys not being Travis Kelce, George Kittle behemoths, that they should be fast, right? They should be able to jump. They should be super athletic. I know there's plenty of people and Sadiq, I'm not concerned with his blocking. Stowers, I'm definitely concerned with his blocking. There's a lot of people out there that will tell you that blocking doesn't matter. Smart people too, that it doesn't matter. I think it does, because you got to be able to get to be able to block to get onto the field. Getting onto the field means more opportunities. Certainly if you can't block and an opposing defense sees, I'm using Stowers as an example, they see him on the field, they probably know either the ball's going to him, or at a minimum, it's probably going to be a passing play, right? So while I'm intrigued with the athleticism of both of these players, I am a little bit nervous how that translates to every down capability for these two players when they get to the next level. Sadiq's going to be going in the first round for sure. Stowers probably second. I don't think he sneaks into the first round. Am I right to feel nervous about these two players, or do you see these guys as safer picks than I do?
I think Sadiq. I've been a Sadiq fan for a long time, so I'm super biased on that. So I think, I think he could go very high. I really do. I mean, that combine, he rocked it out, and I saw, I can't take credit for this, but I saw somebody tweet out how, his high jump was like better than Julio Jones, and he was faster than Odell Beckham. All these crazy stats compared to receivers, let alone tight ends. And so I think that, whatever concern someone may have about his blocking skill, I don't think they're going to care, because I think they're going to utilize him as a receiver most of the time anyway. With Stowers, it's a valid point, meaning for a guy like that who is not sort of super elite athleticism like that, still very good. I'm not saying he's bad, but to your point, if he's going to be on the field all the time, he's got to be able to be a well-rounded tight end, and that means being able to block. And so I still think there's a chance, though, that he could sneak at the end of the first, because I think that certainly some of those teams that are picking at the end of the first, obviously playoff teams, sort of have that luxury that they may want to take a chance on getting a super freak athletic tight end like that at the end of the first. And if that happens, let's face it, the fantasy value is going to go through the roof for a first round tight end. It always does. So, but yeah, it's one of those too that, we'll have to wait and see if he will be able to sort of stand his ground against NFL linemen and NFL linebackers that are trying to kill him.
As it stands right now, in regards to Sadiq, let's say your rookie draft is prior to the NFL draft. And the first four picks are Love, and then the three receivers, Love, Tate, Tyson, Lemon. Tight end premium, would you take Sadiq at the 105 then, right now?
And is it, did you say super flex too, or just tight end premium?
Nope. Single quarterback, tight end premium.
I would absolutely 1.5. I honestly, and again, my personal sort of method, if you will, is I try to look at the positions on a fantasy team that I can have an advantage over. And look, a lot of times tight end is one of them, quite honestly, that a lot of the teams on your Dynasty League are not going to have a very good option there. And so if I can get an advantage, I'm going to take it. And so I say all that to say, I would take him as high potentially as 1.3, quite honestly. Wow. It's certainly in a tight end premium league. Love is number one. I'm not going to, be cute with that. And again, I think Tate is a very solid number two, but I think even after that, Tyson, I could certainly make a case for 3, but I think at 4 or 5, I would absolutely entertain that.
I think that is a good place to stop on the Dynasty, on the rookie class. What I want to do next, Michael, is talk with you a little bit about some of the veterans that we should be making or should not be making moves on right now as it pertains to trades prior to the NFL draft. We really, the next big thing is free agency. And then after that, we're going to have to wait till the NFL draft to really sink our teeth into players going to new teams or whatever. So I guess this will be our pre-free agency look at what you should be doing with these veterans in Dynasty Leagues. He's Michael Moore from Dynasty League Football Fantasy Pros. I'm Eric Balkman. Don't go anywhere. That and so much more as we roll on right after this. You are watching FFPC Insider Access. The baby gorilla is filling up and taking names right now at myffpc.com. If you've always wanted to play high-stakes fantasy football, this is the entry point you have been waiting for. $125 to enter, and you can win a $100,000 grand prize, 6,000 team cap. So register for the big gorilla or baby gorilla right now. Live and slow drafts popping off. The big gorilla also has live and slow drafts popping off. $350 to enter a $1 million grand prize. The 7 Bananas promo is live. The early Rampage tournament right now is live. If you are joining the big gorilla right now, you will automatically be entered into the early Rampage tournament. You don't have to do anything else. You're not only eligible for that $1 million grand prize, but a bonus $25,000 grand prize as well in the early Rampage tournament. If best ball is your game, we have the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament, the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournament, $40,000 and $10,000 grand prizes respectively in that. Just $125 and $35 to join those formats. Those will close before the NFL draft starts, though. So make sure you're getting in on that. How long do we have till the NFL draft? Probably, I don't know, 6 weeks roughly. So make sure you're getting in there. Live and slow drafts going on there. And of course, Dynasty Orphans, Empire Dynasty Orphans available at myffpc.com. Some teams available for as little as $1. Pick up some teams today and play fantasy football year round with the FFPC. That's at myffpc.com. We come to the home stretch of FFPC Insider Access this evening. A few minutes to go in the show. Being joined tonight, my name is Eric Balkman. He is Michael Moore from Dynasty League Football and Fantasy Pros. Want to get into some Dynasty buys and sells with you. Just one running back I want to touch on right away, and that's Travis Etienne. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this. It looked like he was going to come back to Jacksonville. Now it doesn't look like he's coming back to Jacksonville. I would imagine wherever he signs, he's going to have a role very similar to the one he did with the Jags, or perhaps even better. When you think about ETN and Dynasty right now, is this the opportune time to be buying him before he signs with a new team, or perhaps his same team, Michael?
You know, it's tough. I probably would hold off only because, again, with running backs, it's such a fickle position. It's hard to sort of determine if it's going to be worth it or not to sort of spend, rookie picks or what have you. So, and look, I'm an ETN fan. I think he's good in a vacuum. I certainly benefited last year from kind of his bounce back year because I think a lot of people wrote him off and assumed that, hey, Jacksonville drafted Tootin, so, hey, he's going to be the guy, he'll take over, and it didn't happen. ETN was still very productive and very good. So I would like to see him back in Jacksonville because I don't know that they have a sort of solution on the team already to fill that void. And if that's the case, again, to kind of keep it in context, I think his value is good where it is right now. I wouldn't go above it. And if you're a current sort of ETN dynasty manager, I wouldn't necessarily offload either. I would wait to hold on that and kind of see where it ends up. Now, if he does end up signing, some kind of quasi big free agent deal with another team, that might be a good time to sell, only because you're sort of trying to take advantage of the glow that he'll have on his new team. But with running backs, it's just such an interesting position, whether it's real life football teams or with our dynasty teams.
I'm just getting this right now, and I'll just bring it up. Maybe there's fantasy analysis in this. Maybe there's not. But Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Rams and Tyler Higbee have agreed on a 2-year, $8 million deal. This is not necessarily a question on Tyler Higbee, because I think his best football is behind him. But there's plenty of people that like Colby Parkinson, plenty of people that like Terrence Ferguson, an ascending sophomore tight end this year. What does this addition of Higbee do to the Rams? I mean, certainly this could give them the flexibility to play more of these, 13 personnel that they were doing last year with all those tight ends on the field. But I wonder if this takes a little bit of the shine off of Ferguson and Parkinson now.
Oh, it absolutely does. Because look, I think if anything, Higbee has proven he's a Sean McVay guy. Sean McVay wants him around, if not for necessarily his statistics or his athleticism, certainly for his leadership and just sort of his veteran experience. I think that's what this is. But at the same time, it's still going to take away snaps and attention away from the other guys in the tight end room, and as long as he's got those guys there, and maybe that's the point with McVay, he wants to sort of spread it around. He doesn't want to sort of rely on any one tight end or another, whether it's Parkinson or Higbee or Ferguson. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think, this is a clear sign that, hey, he's keeping the veteran around because he can trust him. He knows what he's doing. But at the same time, it also means, hey, maybe don't go nuts on any other Rams tight end right now.
Right. The wide receiver portion of this segment, because I know you've been giving these, you mentioned at the top of the show, these pieces that you've been writing for Dynasty League Football about players in the news and how to handle them for Dynasty. The Pickens thing is interesting here because we know he's been franchised, but it was also reported that he's not going to be playing he won't play unless he has the long-term deal. I guess this is how you like to play Dynasty, right? How strong is your stomach? Do you have a strong enough stomach that you will roll with Pickens, even though that he may not report and that he may just sit out? Although there's no really reason to sit out under the new collective bargaining agreement. It doesn't help these guys to miss time at all. But you could see him just miss time out of principle. Or would this be a situation where, hey, maybe I sell Pickens for 90 cents on the dollar, 95 cents on the dollar, or something like that, just so I don't have to deal with the headaches. Maybe this gets resolved before July. Maybe, in August, September, it's still a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I think the number you said, that sort of selling for 90, 95%, I think I would do that at this point right now, only because, I mean, Pickens had a great year, no doubt about it. I think the question is, can he do much better than that? And look, if you're able to get a pretty good deal for your dynasty team in exchange for him, I think I would absolutely entertain that. Because look, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so I'm privy to the Jerry Jones sort of drama like all day, every day, and you just never know what's gonna happen with these guys. I mean, like we saw with Micah Parsons last year. If you'd have asked anyone, hey, they'll never trade him, he's too good, well, you ended up being wrong. And so I think with Dallas, and certainly with Pickens, I think anything is on the table. To me, it really made me question more about CeeDee Lamb than anything, because Pickens absolutely balled out when Lamb wasn't there. And was, sitting out because of injury. And look, we know that Dak and the rest of the offense, they're very capable of supporting a lot of fantasy players. So that's not a question. But the issue is, when it comes to Pickens or Lamb, who's going to be the guy that Dallas and, subsequently our dynasty teams sort of lean on? And so, if you can, I think, trade Pickens for a very attractive package for your dynasty team, I would absolutely entertain that. And if you kept him and you sort of rode that roller coaster all off season, I think you would be rewarded, because I think if anything, last season proved that he's fully capable. I mean, we kind of thought it in Pittsburgh. We thought that talent was there and he showed flashes, but they didn't really cut him loose. But with Dallas, they let him sort of just do his thing, and he proved it. He proved he's an elite receiver, certainly on fantasy teams. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's never boring with the Cowboys and any of their star players. So, but yeah, with Pickens, that's just for the drama alone, I think him and Dallas are a match made in heaven. So,
the same division, Commanders, Terry McLaurin has a new OC this year. David Blau, who started the season as the assistant quarterbacks coach in Washington. Now he's the OC to begin the 2026 campaign. When the 2026 campaign begins, Terry McLaurin will be turning 31 in September. Blau still wants to get him 10 targets a game. Is this a case of, hey, maybe I want to make sure, even though the age with McLaurin, maybe I want to keep him around on my team, or maybe I want to actually acquire him on my team, because not only could he be very good this season, but maybe we squeeze 2 or 3 more seasons out of him as well. Certainly, it looks like his new offensive coordinator wants to get him the ball a lot.
He does, and when I first heard that, I had to double check. Terry McLaurin's never had 10 targets a game in his career. So
right.
Let's sort of keep it in perspective. That sounds nice, and I'm sure David Blau is loves Terry McLaurin, but the 10 targets thing is not going to happen. So let's just nip that in the bud. But at the same time, with Washington, literally there are no other receivers left. I mean, Deebo Samuel, at least at the moment, appears to not be coming back. You've got Zach Ertz, a tight end that, he could retire any minute now with sort of where he's at in his career. So personally, I'm a believer that Terry McLaurin will be the top receiver in Washington again. But again, even when he was in past years, that didn't necessarily mean he was a top 10 fantasy receiver overall. He was a top 20, very solidly top 20. And I think if he returned to that, I think you would be very happy with that. So, I think if you're a dynasty team that's sort of on the lookout for a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, I think he's a great buy low candidate, certainly, because his name has sort of been out of the picture for a while. And like you said, the age thing is certainly going to scare some people off.
Yeah.
But look, he's on a good team. He's got a very good quarterback, and assuming he's healthy. So yeah, as long as you sort of are okay with Terry McLaurin just being Terry McLaurin and not expecting him to have sort of some epiphany or breakout this year, I would absolutely go after him.
When I put this rundown together, DJ Moore was still a Bear. He was not a Buffalo Bill yet, and maybe this changes your answer. Keon Coleman is a player who has struggled. After being the 33rd pick of the draft a couple of years ago, and now he could ostensibly be the number 5 target on that team behind Cook, Kincaid, Moore, and Shakir. When FFPC Dynasty owners have to cut down to 16 players at the end of the month, are you cool with just cutting Coleman at this point, despite investing a first-round rookie draft pick into him in 2024?
Yes, I'm absolutely okay cutting him when it comes down to cuts. I mean, look, it's been a couple of years now. This isn't, he's in year 3, or he's going to be in year 3. And look, we had Joe Brady when he was named coach say, "Oh, this is good for Keon Coleman that I'm sticking around." That's just lip service. He has to say that, and I get it. He doesn't want to irk or rub any player the wrong way on his first day on the job. But the bottom line is Keon Coleman just hasn't fulfilled that potential. He just hasn't. And if Buffalo felt confident in it, they wouldn't have traded a 2nd-round pick, which is not peanuts, for DJ Moore. And so. I don't see it with Keon Coleman. I mean, I think he's just going to be kind of lost in the shuffle there in Buffalo next year. And I'm not a fan. I would definitely leave him off your rosters going into next year.
Moving to tight ends, Kyle Pitts gets the franchise tag this year, Michael, coming off at least his 2nd best year as a pro, maybe his best year as a pro. do we expect more big things from Pitts? Do we expect another season this year like last one? Not knowing, I mean, we think it's going to be Penix at quarterback, but certainly that's a nebulous situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I can't believe I'm saying it, but like I'm a Kyle Pitts believer now. I mean, I wasn't for the first 4 or 5 years, but look, last year he turned it on, and he was a top 5 fantasy tight end. He was consistent, and the sort of I guess the reassuring thing was, like you said, they went back and forth at quarterback between Penix and between Kirk Cousins. And so to me, that tells me, okay, he doesn't need a Dak Prescott. He doesn't need a Caleb Williams to be successful. He did it with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. Like, I'm not going to say that's as quarterback proof as you can get, but it's getting pretty close. And look, they hired Stefanski, who, I mean, let's not forget what he did with tight ends last year. He turned Harold Fannin, a rookie, into an elite fantasy option while still having David Njoku be very productive. Mm-hmm. So he was doing more, Stefanski was, with 2 tight ends than a lot of teams are doing, with 1. So no, I'm a believer. I think he's a solid top 5 tight end at this point. And I think he's going to do well. And I think he finally, and again, I'm not going to say why or how, but I think he finally found it, and I think he's going to be pretty consistent going forward.
The other thing, he's only 25, right? I mean, so he was a young player.
Right.
Maybe it just took a little bit longer for the light to come on for him.
Yeah.
Flip side of this, other end of the spectrum, Pitts is 25. George Kittle's going to turn 33 this year, and he's coming off an Achilles tear. I don't really know what the best way is to handle him on your roster. Do you hold him? Do you buy him for cheap? Do you sell him for cheap? Because, I mean, honestly, he could miss a lot of games this year. Maybe he misses the whole season. I really don't know, because he's as far as Achilles injuries go, he's not a young man and would not bounce back if he was 23. The way he would bounce back at 23, he's not going to bounce back that way at 33. So I'm kind of unsure of I don't think I have Kittle on many or any of my dynasty teams right now. But I'm wondering what the actionable advice is that we can offer people on the proper way to handle him, whether you own him or not, Michael.
Yeah. So, and believe me, I've lived the George Kittle sort of life for a long time. I'm a 49er fan, just outside of fantasy stuff, and so I've seen it all. I think the injuries with him are sort of built in, right? I mean, you just have to assume at a minimum he would miss a month of every season, but he's been so good in the games that he has played that he's still serviceable, certainly from a fantasy standpoint. And I know, the 49ers think from an actual NFL standpoint. So now, having said that, this is a pretty serious injury. This isn't, a dislocated elbow or a broken leg. This is a pretty serious one that is very difficult to come back from. I don't know that I would sell him for cheap, just because when he does play, he's very valuable. If anything, I would be one of those teams trying to get him, I think, on the cheap. And again, assuming that you're not looking to have him certainly to start the season, that you have a sort of serviceable backup, or maybe you draft one of the rookie tight ends that can slot in there. But I think that he's too good to sort of cut bait on. And I think that he's the kind of guy that even if he were to play half a season, if he was on your team and you were making a playoff run in your fantasy league, he's a difference maker. I think he gives you a sizable advantage when he's on the field. It's just he can't stay on the field. So, right. But believe me, if your roster's big enough and it's got enough roster spots, I would absolutely try to keep him, whatever you can do.
The other thing too that we can talk about here is the opening of some targets in San Francisco this year if they don't bring back Jennings.
Yeah.
And obviously Ayuk is not going to be an answer there. He's not going to be back with the team. But so then you look at Kittle and Jake Tonges, quite frankly, is another guy that we'd have to look at in tight end premium leagues. And I know there's a lot of people picking up on a breakout for Ricky Pearsall this year. Who gets you most excited as a Niners fan to be the star of this offense who's not named Christian McCaffrey?
Oh, okay. I was going to say that's easy, Christian McCaffrey, but yeah. But outside of that, Pearsall. Look, I think I think this is going to be a make or break year for him. It absolutely has to be. He's fought, obviously, to start his career. I mean, he was the victim of a very violent act, and he came back from that with injuries also going on. But I think at this point, between Ayuk and just that whole weird, it's just, I don't know how else to describe that situation, but just very weird and odd. But it's clear that San Francisco, I think, is ready to move on and sort of be done with it, which leaves Pearsall. Now I think if there's a way that Jawan Jennings comes back, I would be interested in him as well, because I think when he is on the field too, he's proven to be very valuable. But again, that's another situation where you don't know if sort of the bridges have been burned there, or if Jawan Jennings just wants to move on and be the man somewhere else. But for me, if Jennings is back, that would be where I would put my money on.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, man. I'd love to see Jennings and Pearsall back there catching passes with McCaffrey running in the backfield, Tom just holding it down until Kittle's back, and with Purdy spraying the ball all over. It certainly could be a very exciting time to be owning San Francisco 49ers in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues.
Yeah.
For more on the Niners and all other 31 teams in the NFL, check out at DLF_more. That is Michael Moore's handle on X. You can check out everything he's doing for Dynasty League Football and Fantasy Pros. Can you give us an update of what you'll be working on in the offseason before the season starts in September?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's more of that trending observations article that goes year round. Obviously, there's always something on Twitter or X that is going on. So I'm very thankful that, hey, there's seemingly always something to cover. Certainly when it comes to our fantasy and our dynasty leagues.
Check it out. Anytime there's an update, it will be on dynastyleaguefootball.com, and connect with Michael on X at DLF_more. This is a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for spending a couple hours chopping it up with me. I definitely learned a lot. I know the viewers did too. Be good. Keep up the great work, and we will do this again sometime soon.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
You got it. That is Michael Moore from Dynasty League Football. Good stuff from him, and that will wrap up our show tonight. I want to remind everybody, Dynasty and Umpire Orphans available for as little as $1 at myffpc.com. Play fantasy football every single day of the year right now with Dynasty Football with the FFPC. Never Too Early Best Ball and Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournaments also going on. $40,000 and $10,000 grand prizes respectively there. Don't forget about the Big Gorilla and the Baby Gorilla. $1 million grand prize, $100,000 grand prize. Just $350 to enter the Big Gorilla, and you'll be eligible for the 7 Bananas promo. You'll be in the early Rampage tournament. Baby Gorilla, only $125 to join, and you can still win a 6-figure grand prize. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that. I want to shout out Michael Moore for hanging out tonight. We'll be back at 7 o'clock next Thursday with Rotoballer's Ryan Goodman. Tomorrow night on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, it's our debut episode of Extra Reps. Myself, Farrell Elliott, and last night's guest, Paul Brenton. We went a little overtime and got another podcast coming out for you at 10 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And then we will be back with the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour next Wednesday. $25,000 Terminator champ Danny Kennedy joins us 10 p.m. on Wednesday. That will do it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for watching. For Michael Moore, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access.